Dum aloo as a dish means so much to me. I'm so excited to share it today. Dum means oven and aloo means potato. So it's thrice cooked potato, boiled, fried, and then spiced to a dry spice blend. Classic Kashmiri cuisine in that it is very simple and very time consuming. So I'm going to do it for you in a few stages. We'll start with the boiling of the potatoes. So what we want is about 700 grams of baby potatoes, so chat potatoes. So I'm going to pop them in before the water's boiled and just bring those to a boil, so no salt in there or anything. I'm going to boil them with the skin on until they're just cooked. I'm going to strain them off. Now you can put those in cold water, but because some of the potatoes are slightly bigger than others, I actually want them to keep steaming just for a couple of minutes because some of the bigger ones aren't quite done enough. So I'm going to leave those to cool down on their own before I skin them and then prep them for the next stage of the dish. So these need to be peeled, which is a little bit time consuming, but the reason we're peeling the potatoes here is because these are going to be skewered. And I'll show you what that looks like. Look at that, done. I couldn't find a skewer, so I'm going to use a screwdriver. Skewering a couple of holes in the potatoes means that because they are whole, when they go to cook, they're going to take on the spice. And these potatoes are parboiled really beautifully, so they're not too soft, they're not falling apart, but neither are they giving me any resistance to this process, and that's what you want. The time that takes is going to depend a bit on the size of the potatoes, but I boiled these for around 12 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to heat up my kadai. So what you need is a heavy base pot. So every part of this process of this dish contributes something different to the pan, and it's always good to hold that information close because it enables you to understand what it is you're doing and what you need your produce to look like at the end of every stage. So at the end of the boiling, it should be beautifully cooked but not falling apart. At the end of the frying, you want it to be golden but not dripping with oil, and so that's why we're going to use a little bit of kitchen towel to drain. The third step is the spicing with more oil and yogurt and a slow cook. Yep, it's perfect. So just a couple at a time. So you just want to move them really gently through the oil so they're not sticking. And so the browning happens evenly. So they're quite brown, but I want them to be because I want there to be a little bit of a crust so that they don't break apart later. So each little batch cooked in lots of 4 and 5 have cooked for about 4 minutes in the hot oil. You can see that colour, it's really deep and dark. Now I am actually going to skewer them again, so just watch, because watch your fingers, I mean, not watch the camera, because they'll be hot. Next up comes the spice. So we're going to use another heavy based pot to cook these in. So this is where we just take it up a notch. So 5 tablespoons of mustard oil to high heat. And then in a separate little cup, so a really nice thick natural yogurt, 4 tablespoons. Chili powder. This is a hot chili powder, not a Kashmiri chili powder, so this is going to have a little bit of heat in there. So I'm going to do a generous teaspoon. And I'm going to stir this together while that oil's heating. gonna get my spices together. So when that's hot, this is gonna go in. So you just want this to cook off just a little bit. Oil and dairy. You can see it starting to split. So this is when we add a cup of water and then all of the spices here. Teaspoon of ginger, fennel powder, so a teaspoon of that. That's the dominant character. We're actually going to do a teaspoon and a half. Cloves, a little handful, 8 to 10. A few bay leaf. I mean, you can see that there is just real coherence with traditional Kashmiri spicing. It's very rooted in earthy character. So even the colours, to look at it visually, the palette is really muted. It's very rich. And there's a density to the spicing that contributes to the end result of that very soft but lasting flavour. Salt is to taste. So I'm going to put almost 2 teaspoons in there, only because there is so much fat and flavour that the salt will help lighten it. Our asafoetida, water. If you don't have asafoetida resin to make the water, you can use powder. Right, so once that's boiling, which it is now, we're going to add back the potatoes. And you can just, imagine the end result of this. So good. Now the reason these potatoes need to be cooked really well at this point and to be firm is because they're going into all of this liquid and this is going to cook down. So I'm going to taste it now. Oof! Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Oh, it's hot. That chili hits the back of your throat. There's this beautiful fragrance in there, and the fragrance is the asafoetida. So asafoetida is a really particular aroma: sulfur, pineapple, onion, and smelly feet. But it comes through the pan as floral and a little bit curious. So not quite jasmine. It's richer and more enigmatic than that sort of an aroma. But it contributes a lightness to the spicing because it has an astringent lightening quality, and you can see with how dense and complex that spicing is that that little bit of lightness really does offer a reprieve and just this really exotic, seductive kind of a fragrance to the end experience of taste on that dish. Like, it's so good and so unusual and so this. Like, it's nothing else. It's just dum aloo. That's exactly what it is. Yum. You need to watch this. So it's not a pot that you can turn down and leave. If you don't stir it, at the bottom it's going to stick and burn. After all the effort, it makes sense to stand here just a little bit longer and make sure that part of the dish goes well. But you can see how the oil's starting to split from the fat, and that's what you want. The end result of this is basically potato that's browned off, and it sits in just a little bit of spiced oil by the end. It smells like bay leaf and cardamom. It's really strong. Rice and dum aloo. Oh my gosh. And it's not very sexy to shoot. Is it? But all the flavours in there. You've got I can get the oil, the yogurt, the chili, the garam masala, the asafoetida is there just as like this sparkling kind of back note. The ground fennel, which normally comes through really strongly, is just this very broad sweetness. which tells you how much flavour there is input into those potatoes, because normally ground fennel is really dominant, but in this context, it's harmony. And that's what tradition is. Tradition is a way to express a harmonious view of the people that we are. It definitely carries my world.